So I was giving a talk today about the process of building a research team at Etsy. Research is a fairly new thing at Etsy. It's been about a year and a half now, and so we've been trying to figure out where the need is and how to staff against a number of different research initiatives. So for example, we do quite a bit of user experience research. We are a very strong product development organization. We are really just getting started with marketing, and so we're now trying to also get market research going and trying to figure out sort of the relationship between those two functions is one of the themes I was trying to explore. So, Etsy's a very different kind of company. Ultimately, it's a smaller company. In the past, I've worked at big and small companies. I worked at the Times. A long time ago, I worked at IBM, which is like 300,000 people. And so, in those kinds of environments, I think that it's more important that you're telling a story that can be persuasive to maybe senior people in the company, and you really need to be very buttoned up and concise and sort of sell the story a little bit. I think in the Etsy culture, it's just different. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but we're a smaller company. We're much flatter. We're much more distributed. Our teams are much more self-directed. And the imperative in this context is for us to move fast and really turn around insights that are very digestible and without really putting a lot of polish on them necessarily. It's just not called for in this situation. So we're more interested in just getting to the point. So the focus on self-directed teams, I think, is really important, and that we try to really push the decision-making out into the organization as much as possible, so that really the role of more senior leaders there is about getting the right people in place and sort of aligning at a high level with a business plan and overall objectives. But we really are trying to reduce the level of management overhead and trying to avoid having things get stuck in too much of a management chain for decisions to get made. So I think there's, it's easy to say that, when you're in a small company. Obviously, big companies have real challenges trying to coordinate those kinds of things. But I think it's a good principle in general is to try to, push the decision-making as far as it'll go into the organization. So I think the biggest challenge Etsy has really been, because it's a brand new function, a lot of it is about getting good people in place and then getting them working together and figuring out what the roles are, how we distinguish different roles. And at the same time, the company is growing, so it's a little bit like trying to stand up in a boat, getting a team going and then trying to not tip that boat over, and trying to just make sure that, we're gelling as a team and that we're integrating well with the organization while we're building this practice and trying to move things forward. And there has been more demand than we've really been able to handle, so it's also been a question of prioritizing and making sure that we're focusing on the things that are going to be the highest value projects. So I think the best piece of advice I would have is to stay open and not to have too fixed an idea of what the outcome should be, and try to be open to the situation and what it seems to call for, and staying open to the kinds of people that will emerge as you start looking for candidates. I think it's very easy to come up with like a fixed idea of, I have this box and I want this kind of researcher to put in this box, and you might find somebody who is only like halfway in that box but brings something really interesting to the table, and you might need to like adapt your plan accordingly. So I think it's important to not get too fixated on on a plan when plans inevitably change, and I think it's good just to be as responsive as you can to the shifting environment. One of Etsy's sort of core values is to be transparent, so we're very much about trying to sort of open the kimono as much as possible about everything we do. So we try not to save up information or kind of present things just to senior stakeholders. We try to really be very open about that, and so whenever we do research, we distribute it very broadly. It's very rare that we do a piece of research that's so proprietary that we can't share it. I mean, there are cases where you find something sensitive and you have to use good judgment about that, but generally I find that it's not just about getting buy-in from senior people. It's really about getting lateral buy-in at the same time. So I guess I would reframe that question a little bit. I think it's more important that you just be as open as possible with what you're doing, and that tends to build trust. I think when people just see that you don't have some hidden agenda, you're just putting it all out there. So I think with sellers, we tend to be a little more qualitative in our approach. There are a million sellers, so we do survey. I mean, we can do quantitative research with them, but the kinds of tools we're developing for them really lend themselves to qualitative research, to really going in depth and watching people. They're very motivated. They use these things day to day. It's how they support themselves in some cases. It's their livelihood. So they're very motivated and engaged, and they'll spend a lot of time with us really working through how a particular tool works. On the buyer side, I think there's certainly a role for qualitative research, and we're doing a lot of it, but it's easier to measure some things with data like conversion rates and and there, it may be a little more of a quantitative exercise on the buyer side, but we do both, with both audiences. So.